Hello everyone. In today's video, I'll be sharing content that I've been preparing and planning to present to you for a long time. We'll talk about what a sales engineer is, how to become a sales engineer, and what is expected from a sales engineer. At the same time, I'll also talk about the 8 most important skills that, in my experience over the years, a sales engineer should have. I hope you enjoy the video. If you like the content, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. The concept of sales engineering has become much more popular in our country over the last 10 to 15 years. It is a job title given to engineers working in the sales teams, mainly within companies that market industrial products. When we look at the concept of sales engineering, as the name suggests, it actually refers to people with an engineering background who are involved in carrying out sales activities. The main responsibility expected from a sales engineer is to carry out sales activities, and during these activities, to use their technical education to contribute to increasing sales. How does this technical education contribute? Especially with the customers you visit, you are expected to analyze how your products, the products you sell, or it could also be a service, will benefit the customer, to identify and present this as a solution. In addition, it is also expected that the activities carried out, the sales made, and the feedback received within a certain period will be analyzed, and that future activities will be designed based on these past analysis reports. In fact, a sales engineer operates in a large part of this field throughout their professional life. At the same time, due to their technical background, they play an active role in internal company trainings, and in meetings with suppliers, they gather information to understand the details and technical aspects of the products, as well as the benefits they provide, and then try to convey this information to their customers. So why do we hire sales engineers instead of regular sales personnel without an engineering background for industrial product sales? Because the expectation here is to analyze the needs well, understand exactly what the customer requires from a technical perspective, and offer them the right product from what we have. Of course, while doing this, a profit margin is also expected. The goal of all businesses is to maximize profit from the products they make or sell, or from the services they provide. To achieve this, they also need to understand what the customer is willing to pay for. And when the customer pays for something, they need to get value in return for their money, so that the business relationship can continue for many years. Otherwise, if it's a trade where only one side benefits, it won't last very long. It will be much shorter, maybe just a one-time deal. For this reason, companies hire sales engineers, and after providing them with the necessary training, whether from suppliers, internal training, or third-party external companies, once they are properly equipped, they expect them to get in touch with customers and take part in product sales and sales activities. So what kind of skills do we need to become an effective sales engineer and to move up the career ladder? Here, especially our colleagues working in the field know very well that there is intense competition. When you visit a customer, there are actually dozens of other people from different companies visiting that same customer, just like you. And most of them are actually presenting the same things you are, explaining what you explain, and many of them are offering similar solutions. So why would the customer choose to buy from you? In other words, why would that customer you visited prefer you? For the customer to choose you, you need to have something that sets you apart from the other people visiting them. You can differentiate yourself with your product, or you can differentiate yourself with your solution. In today's competitive environment, we need to be different from our competitors. We need to be one step ahead of them so that we can cross the finish line successfully. For this reason, I will share with you 8 skills that I have identified over the years and that I believe are very important. The first of the 8 valuable skills I have observed is the skill of preparation. When I talk about the skill of preparation, I'm not just referring to preparing for a visit. I'm talking about an annual plan. You started a job, you received the title of sales engineer at a company, and they told you, yes, welcome to our team. We're assigning you this region. You are responsible for this region. Carry out the activities here. Before we start any activities related to this region, we need to do some preparation. First of all, who are our current customers? What is our company's plan? What are our goals? Within a certain period, what point do we plan to reach? We need to analyze these things. We need to know these things. After learning these, we need to call these customers. We need to communicate with them. With some of them, we can communicate in writing. With some, we can have a phone conversation, and some we need to visit in person. Of course, since time is limited, you need to plan these very well. Otherwise, you risk working very hard but not producing results. From what I have seen, most successful sales engineers have developed this skill. Many of them, that is, many of these successful sales engineers, are very good at planning. Which customers will they visit? How many times a year will they visit them? How frequently will they visit? Who will they meet with during these visits? And what will they discuss with them? They plan all of this step by step, meticulously. And instead of spending the year thinking about where to go next or coming to the office in the morning and wondering who will call so they can go for a visit, they actively plan everything from the very beginning and simply follow this plan throughout the year. What I have observed is that many of our sales colleagues work without a plan. They go to the company and try to make decisions on a daily basis. They try to plan their visits for the day or the next few days based on incoming phone calls, emails, or someone else's directions. However, when you look at these successful sales engineers, you see that they plan things out much earlier. You went to a company and took responsibility for a region. They told you that you are responsible for this region. From this point on, we need to start planning. How are we going to make this plan? First of all, of course, we need to know who our customers are in that area. We need to list them. After identifying these customers, we need to talk to our company's managers, or if it's a family business, with the owner, and make sure we understand exactly what is expected of us. In other words, we need to know our targets very well. After all, if you're working within a sales team, the primary expectation from you will be to increase sales. At this point, you either need to find new customers or increase the sales volume with existing customers. In addition to your current customers, you also need to know the customers you are targeting. If you don't know these, who will you approach? Who will you work with? Of course, you need to conduct a good analysis. For this, you can use resources like LinkedIn, or you can conduct market research. These studies are shared. There are magazines dedicated to certain segments. You can find these magazines, go through them, and look at which companies are advertising there or whose articles are featured, and from there, you can also find names. Once you have found these, you need to create an active customer list and a targeted customer list. At another stage, you need to determine how frequently you will visit these customers. You need to plan these things. The main difference is that sales engineers who have developed this skill often take action months in advance and know where they will go tomorrow, where they will go next week, and where they will go the week after. However, sales engineers who have not developed this skill make decisions on a daily basis. They decide where to go based on incoming emails and phone calls. This is definitely not beneficial. It might help you gain a customer in the moment, but it doesn't help you consistently acquire new customers. Another important skill is the ability for self-motivation. This is also one of the essential qualities of an effective sales engineer. Because most of the time you work alone, and if you don't keep your self-motivation high, there's a high chance you'll give up quickly. This is actually a situation we encounter at every stage of sales activities. But where does this start? It starts with making phone calls. If you make 10 phone calls and don't get a positive response from any of them, your motivation can drop very quickly. Or you visited a customer, they gave you an appointment, you went, but they weren't there. Again, you might lose your motivation, or maybe you submitted a proposal. The customer said about your proposal, "I'm going to give you this order." 2 weeks passed, you called. They said, "Sorry, but the competitor gave another discount, so we had to give it to them." All of these are things that lower a salesperson's daily motivation. That's why you should never wait for external motivation, neither to start nor to continue. This has to come entirely from within. When we look at successful sales engineers, motivation comes from within the person themselves. Another important trait is the ability to overcome challenges. This again applies to sales engineers. Since they usually work alone, they are likely to encounter many challenges throughout the day. They shouldn't get discouraged by these. This could be, for example, a customer you are visiting changing the meeting time, or it could be them saying, "Something came up at the last minute, let's meet tomorrow instead." Or maybe you prepared a great presentation, you went there and you're about to present it. Then you realize the company's projector isn't compatible with your computer. What are you going to do in this situation? Are you going to give up, or are you not going to do it? You need to come up with a solution somehow. You need to be quite used to situations like this and be able to overcome them. When we look at successful sales engineers, we see that they always have a plan B. We see that they always come up with solutions to unexpected problems they encounter, and they still leave the situation on a positive note. Another one of the most important qualities is listening skills. If your listening skills are not developed or are insufficient, you have no chance of understanding what your customer wants or what they need. During the meeting, you won't be able to understand what your customer's real problem is. In that case, the chances of coming up with the right solution and having the customer satisfied at the end of the process are quite low. Some studies say you should speak 20% of the time and listen 80%. You shouldn't say much, let the customer do the talking. Of course, maybe it's not entirely accurate to give such mathematical figures, but what's important is that during the time you're there, in other words, while you're having this customer meeting, you should try to understand what the customer truly wants from you. If you can identify their real problem during this meeting, your chances of offering the most suitable product or service from your range that will solve their issue will be quite high. When we look at successful sales engineers, we see that they really listen to their customers attentively during these meetings and try to understand their problems. In addition to listening skills, another important trait, another skill we need to develop is the ability to ask questions. The ability to ask questions, friends, is also extremely important because during these meetings, while you are actively listening and trying to understand your customers' problems and issues, the questions you ask can actually help clarify the matter. If you ask the right questions, your chances of getting the right answers from the other side are quite high. However, if you ask the wrong questions, you might actually steer the conversation away from its main point and bring it to topics that shouldn't be discussed at all. And of course, sometimes the questions asked during meetings can create a negative atmosphere. Customers or the person in front of you may interpret your question in a completely different way. We need to avoid these as much as possible. We shouldn't irritate the other party with the questions we ask. So, for this reason, which questions should we be asking? What kind of questions can we ask to get the answers we want from the customer? There are also separate studies conducted on these topics. You can also research these as well. But as a fundamental skill, as a basic competency, if our goal is to become a successful sales engineer, the ability to ask questions absolutely needs to be developed. What did we do during the meeting? We asked questions, tried to understand the other person's needs, and listened to them. Another skill I can mention is the ability to empathize. Again, when we look at successful sales engineers, we see that they put themselves in the customer's shoes and try to understand what the customer is actually feeling from the answers they give. Because if you put yourself in your customer's shoes, you get the chance to see your own performance from their perspective, and this way you can plan your next move accordingly. The seventh skill I can mention is the ability to establish authority. I think this is one of the most important qualities observed in successful sales engineers. You can see that wherever they go in any environment or with any customer, they always manage to establish authority. So how does this happen? This is not something that happens on its own. These people know their customers very well and they know their products very well. They know very well the benefits that the solutions they offer will bring, and they present these at just the right moments so they are regarded by those around them as people who really know their stuff, and as a result, what they say is listened to more attentively. And especially when they come together with people who don't feel very competent in that field, or who have doubts in their minds, they quickly take control of the situation. And in this way, of course, they can steer the conversation and shape the outcome in the direction they want. For this reason, in order to become a successful sales engineer, we also need to work on and develop this ability to establish dominance. The eighth and final quality I can mention is the ability to build trust. Again, I can say that these people, those who are considered successful sales engineers, are seen by those around them as highly trustworthy individuals. When you look at it, I mean, we all shop, we all buy things from somewhere. You don't buy from a place you don't trust. This is very clear actually for all of us. Of course, this isn't just for sales engineering. It's something that applies to every area of life. Instilling a sense of trust in the other party is very important. If you are visiting a customer for the first time, you need to know how to convey this in the first meeting. And if you think you have shortcomings in this area, you need to address them. Successful sales engineers know very well how to instill this trust in the other party. Whether it's with existing customers, new customers they visit, or anyone they meet in any environment, they are able to convey this trust very clearly. From the very first moment, with the positive messages they give, you trust these people and accept that their words will truly be listened to in their field. That's why, if we have such a goal, we definitely need to project a trustworthy image. In this video, I briefly shared with you the 8 important skills that I have observed. If you have any questions about any of the skills, please write them in the comments below. I will make separate videos about developing some of these skills. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. See you in the next video.